Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rain Check here on WLNS Plus. I'm meteorologist Kendall Wilson, joined by our chief meteorologist, David Young.
Good to be here again. Lots of fun topics to talk about. This show's been really interesting, since we did our first show. We've talked about current weather conditions and different weather phenomena, and today is going to be one of those ones because weather is what everybody's talking about right now.
Yeah, because it's been a very active, weird start to the new year where we, kind of started off on an incredibly warm note, and then we had one system moved in that just kind of changed everything, it seemed like.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, if the rest of January is like this first week, we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Boy, did it flip.
No, that did not hold up for long.
Yeah.
So let's start off by talking about kind of that record-breaking, it wasn't just warm, it was record-breaking warmth that we saw across the region throughout the first couple of days in the month of January.
I mean, look at that. 59 degrees was the record high. We came really close to that. And then we hit 60. I mean, that was an incredible, it felt like spring. It was so warm. You could feel the higher dew points. Made you hope or think that winter might be over already, but no.
It was very interesting because, we put some of the times on there, too, to where, that January 8th, we saw that observed high at almost 11:30 at night. And then that Friday, that record high temperature that we hit was around 8:30 in the morning.
Right, because, later that day, it changed quite a bit, but it started out so warm, so mild. I got up, got my cup of coffee, walked outside just to kind of, because I knew it was going to end.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to soak it in and feel those high dew points. And it was great, but it just didn't last very long.
No, I remember thinking that it was so weird that I was walking outside of my apartment and, it's that warm. We're in the upper 50s, low 60s across the area, and I have my winter coat in because we were forecasting some incredibly strong winds that would eventually bring in that cooler air mass.
Yeah, and those same winds brought in the thunderstorms that we saw. So we got thunderstorms out there. We got these winds, which were just incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're going to hit 60 degrees in January, it usually is going to come with a lot of wind.
Yeah.
And, 67 miles per hour in Jackson, 67 for Detroit. Those are high numbers for even a severe thunderstorm, much less with just a storm system coming through.
Right. And since it was coupled with the thunder, I think we should touch on the fact that, according to data from the National Weather Service in Grand Rapids, while, hearing thunder in the month of January isn't completely out of the question, it's fairly uncommon. The last time that there was reported thunder in Grand Rapids, where, the National Weather Service was all the way back in 2018.
I mean, that's pretty incredible. This has been really an unusual month, not necessarily in terms, although we did break one record high, not in terms of daily records, but just the unusual nature from very warm and contrast that with what we're in, currently, which is bitterly cold, just the opposite direction. The lows themselves may not be records, but when you're days in with 20 degree below zero wind chills, that's a big turnaround.
Yeah, and it's kind of these strong winds, I guess, that ushered in that cooler air mass because we went from, talking about record-breaking highs to then talking about snow across the area over the span of, 24, 48 hours?
Yeah, that weekend was such a contrasting weekend because it was so nice, and then it flipped, and then it's snowing again. It's on the ground. There you see some of the snowfall totals from that weekend, and anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of snow, and we've more or less had snow on the ground, ever since then.
Yeah.
We got rid of part of it at times, but it just kept coming back and starts to build up, especially when you have highs that are below zero or below freezing constantly.
Yeah, and that's kind of the pattern that we've been in since we saw those record-breaking high temperatures. After this system, I think they moderated for about a week or so, and then they're right back down below or at freezing.
Yeah, when you talk about snow, in Michigan, you get a lot of storm systems, but you also get a lot of lake effect snow. We get snow from multiple sources. Now, we don't get the same amounts that certainly Grand Rapids or along the coast do, but we often get lake effect snow here. And then when storm systems come by, it's always a forecasting element we have to consider is, will the system interact with one of the Great Lakes? Will it pick up moisture and give us maybe more snow than the model is predicting because of that?
Yeah, and lake effect snow, obviously we deal with it a lot here in mid-Michigan, Michigan, one of the Great Lakes states just in general. But it's very tricky to kind of narrow down because it's all about, how the relatively warm waters of the lake interact with the cooler air mass that we have on land.
Right. And the bigger the difference between the water temperature and the air above, that's instability. I mean, almost like a springtime thunderstorm.
Yeah.
If it's really warm at the surface, really cold aloft, and those air parcels are going to rise more quickly and be more volatile. So when you see that, the first thing we do as meteorologists is to measure, okay, what's the temperature at, 1,000 feet, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 feet, and the difference between the water temperature. And we can start to gauge, okay, with that kind of instability, how far inland does it make it? Is it going to be mostly along the coast, which we frequently see when the coast gets 6 or 7 inches?
Yeah.
We'll pick up an inch or two here.
Exactly. And it's all about, there's an interesting, with lake effect, there's also, we have to think about the fetch. I love that word.
Yes.
Because
wind direction is everything.
Exactly. Because if the wind blows a certain way to where it blows, I guess, for a longer period of time over the lake, that snow makes it a little bit further inland. And of course, your strength of the winds also plays a role in just how far inland that snow actually gets. I believe with that system that we saw the weekend of January 10th through the 11th, that lake effect snow, one of the bands made it all the way over to my mom over in Metro Detroit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I remember as a kid once, I grew up in North Carolina, and the meteorologists were predicting an inch of snow the next day, which for North Carolina, that's paralyzing.
Yeah.
But it was basically lake moisture. So the meteorologist was talking about how we're going to get basically lake effect snow even in North Carolina, which is incredible. For us, for Lansing, you want more of that like due west wind, really cold temperatures, due west wind, so you can get that fetch to develop and just keep blowing over the same areas. And we've had times where I've seen 5 or 6 inches of lake effect snow. That's unusual because the wind usually doesn't stay in one place for very long. Once it's more of a west-southwesterly or west or southwesterly, you think more up towards Clinton County, Montcalm, Gratiot counties. And if it's more of a west to slightly west-northwest, then I start thinking a little more down towards Jackson. But a 10-degree difference in wind direction, that's a huge difference in where it's going to snow.
And that's, I guess, why like forecasting for lake effect snow is kind of so difficult, because it's that situation, and I think we touched on it before, to where, in Lansing, I could wake up to 3 inches of snow, but up in St. John's, you could have a trace amount to an inch just because of that wind direction and where that band of lake effect decided to actually set up and stay persistent throughout the day.
What's interesting, too, early in this week, we had northern lights visible. But over Lansing, maybe Mason to Lansing and maybe up to Bath, somewhere like that, we had a cloud deck because of the lake effect. But once you got north of that, St. John's or Elty even, and then further south, they had great viewing of these northern lights. And I'm running outside my house, and I can't see them because we're clouded over. But for parts of the area, and that's what that wind direction does, is it really, not only in terms of snow accumulation, but just general cloud cover. Someone else is getting sunshine, and we're socked in with clouds because the wind direction changed by 5 degrees. And so when we're forecasting, we've got to nail the wind direction, not just the temperatures, not just the water temperature of Lake Michigan, but also, the exact trajectory of the wind to get the placement of lake effect bands correct.
Yeah, and it's not just lake effect snow that we deal with. Of course, the Great Lakes, you get kind of a wide variety of interactions, but there's lake effect, and then there's lake enhanced snow as well. To where lake effect, it's because of the, the cold air going over those relatively warm waters, so the air cools and condenses as it rises, that whole thing. So it's essentially the wind and the cold air producing this snow.
Right.
Versus lake enhanced snow is all because of a system itself.
And that's what we have dealt with for the midweek, is a system that's going to roll across mid-Michigan, which normally we would have thought maybe 1 or 2 inches of snow, but it's going to get a little Lake Michigan moisture involved, and so that turns it into a 2 to 4 inch snow. So it does, it can make a significant difference, and the longer a system kind of is able to tap into some of that moisture, the more enhanced snow you might get.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting because, we find ourselves in situations where you do have to think about lake enhancement, I guess, more often than I would think that we would, because it's any system. If it sets up in the right way, if the wind direction is just right, that's a situation where you end up with those higher snowfall totals. And again, some locations, not everyone, but some.
Right. And, what's really interesting is most people don't really, we do because we're meteorologists and it's what we train for. But to most people, you don't really think about the Great Lakes having that much impact on your weather because, wintertime, it's lake enhanced snow, it's lake effect snow. And then like in summer, how many times have we seen these huge storms over in Wisconsin moving in our direction? And we kind of have to say, we're just going to have to wait to see how it interacts with the lake because lots of times the lake, because it's cooler in the summer, so it will end up really starving those storms of instability. And the storms die out before they get here, or they get here and it's just a little bit of rain for us. So the Great Lakes have a tremendous influence on our weather and surrounding states as well.
Yeah.
But we're right in the middle of all the Great Lakes, basically. So it has the biggest impact on this state.
Exactly. And I think even like our temperatures right along the lakeshore are influenced by those lakes as well. There's been several mornings where I've been filling in on the morning show and, we're up and we're talking about, the temperatures that we're seeing in mid-Michigan and Muskegon and Grand Rapids and all these cities are plotted to the west. And we'd be at mid-low 20s maybe, and Muskegon is sitting pretty in the low 30s. And I'm like, wouldn't I like to be there right about now?
The downside of the lakes is it can really enhance snowfall if you don't like snow. The upside is because you're near a body of water that's basically unfrozen, it's going to mitigate temperatures.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in the summer, it's just the opposite direction. So we're 80 degrees, and right along the lake shore, they got a breeze off the lake, and it's like 70.
Yeah.
But it has that dramatic an impact. Water is a great source or sink of heat. We learned that in college. It can store a tremendous amount of heat, which it does, which is why the Great Lakes just don't instantly freeze over when it's below zero. They're releasing heat, and slowly cooling. And then in the summer, they're trying to warm up, but it takes them a long time to absorb all that heat. So then we get the benefits of cooler temperatures out on the beach.
Yeah, it's kind of a toss-up of, which one would you rather have? Would you rather have, warmer lake waters and more snow and sometimes warmer temperatures, or cooler lakes, less severe weather?
Yeah.
And then the cooler temperatures along the lakeshore.
If you ask, 100 people, what do they prefer, the snow or our summers or different types of weather? And I really expected more people in Michigan to go, okay, we live in a cold state, it snows a lot, so you embrace it. A lot of people don't embrace the snow.
And see, I'm glad that I'm not alone in that, finally, that now you said it.
Yeah, every time we're talking like 6 inches or more snow, Kendall is almost in tears. No, please, no.
And I'm outnumbered. It's, you, Katie, and Cole. They're like, please, more snow. This model's saying this. This model's saying more. Let's go with this second one that's more. And I'm like, please, can we just, hope that this one just completely misses us?
Yeah. And, I don't like the little nuisance 1-inch snows. If it's going to snow,
you want a big snow.
I want a big snow.
Yeah.
But, we all pale in comparison to Katie, who's literally running around behind the station after the morning show, building her forecast thing, so into it. Her kids in her neighborhood, she gets out and builds them basically a luge in her backyard. And it's really pretty amazing. As much as I love big snows, I don't go to that level.
Yeah, her and I talked about that just a little bit on, I think, our second episode here as well. And, you could see just the enthusiasm. She was just a bright light as soon as you brought up forecast.
Yeah. And I appreciate those who love the snow. And I do like it a lot. I love to ski.
Yeah.
But driving to work night after night, and, you've got enough snow coming down that you're having to drive, 45 or 50, and it's really cold and windy outside. I don't particularly love those days. If I could, especially if it's on a weekend, if I could stay home and get 7, 8, 9, 10 inches of snow, then I love it. It's great. You got a fire going and watch it snow all day, and maybe I'll go sled with my daughter, but that's about it.
Because then at that point, you don't have to really deal with it. You can enjoy it.
Right.
I think that's crucial. My thing is, I don't want to have to drive in it. I don't want to have to brush the snow off my car and deal with other people driving in the snow, because we've seen several situations where we've had 2-3 inches of snow where, in Michigan, we would say that's pretty minor,
right?
But you have a bunch of crashes.
Yeah. It doesn't take, especially the first couple of snows we get, there's tons of accidents.
Yeah.
And then even now in the middle of winter, people still tend to drive a little too fast for the conditions. So we still get a fair number of accidents no matter what time of winter it is.
Yeah, and I mean, so we have seen, I guess, a decent amount of snow thus far in this season. You know, we're recording this January 20th. So as of now, Lansing, we're sitting pretty close to average, 1.1 inch above normal for this time of year in terms of snowfall. They're 0.7 inches above normal over in Flint. But you head over to the lakeshore, you know, we're talking about, you know, lake enhanced snow, lake effect snow. Muskegon, over 21 inches above normal.
The lake effect has been crazy this year. I was a little surprised. You know, I've been all winter as we keep getting snow after snow, but none are really big. They're kind of the, 2, 3, maybe 4 inches of snow. I was surprised we were as close to normal as we were because it feels like, other than the record-setting warmth at the beginning of January, that it's just been constantly snowing. But so much of it has been very light lake effect. You know, you get a half an inch or a quarter of an inch, or maybe you get an inch. So, I mean, it's understandable that we're close to average, but I really expected us, each time I check it, I expect it to be more above average than it is.
Really? I was kind of surprised that we are above average.
Were you?
Yes, just because, the snows that we have seen, they've been incredibly light snows. So I know that, like, over time, a little will add up to a lot.
Right.
But, we haven't had that many big blockbuster snowstorms.
Right. But the lake effect component has been insane. Some of the numbers in northern lower Michigan and the UP are way, way, way above average. They've had a tremendous, and ski resorts have loved it again this winter. They had an insane winter last year. We're open so long, so late in the season, and then this season, I mean, it feels like it's more of the same, which is just lake effect snow that never quits.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I have to acknowledge, even though I don't like snow, the ski resorts and Michigan tourism, part of it is built on snow. So it is a good thing that, the lake effect has been as strong and persistent as it has been.
Dave Lorenz with Travel Michigan once told me that snow in Michigan, he said, we in the travel business call it pure or white gold.
Okay.
Because it's a $1 billion industry.
Yeah.
So he says, if we don't get snow in the winter, people come here during the summer because it's a beautiful state. We've got Mackinac Island, all these fun places to visit. But in winter, if you don't have the snow, it's just kind of gray and gloomy. So to have the snow in the outdoor winter sports, ice fishing, snowmobiling, skiing, all those fun things to do, it really turns into a large business, and it's great for tourism here.
Yeah. It's not great.
What's that?
Some of the wind chills we have in the forecast for Friday and this weekend. Yeah, it's not going to be too pretty for us here in mid-Michigan, and it's all going to kind of start Thursday afternoon.
Right. Thursday, it starts out on the milder side, but then the Arctic air starts to pour in. So, you're thinking in the morning, in the morning hours, you leave for work or school, and, maybe I don't need my heavy coat today. But by the time you're heading home, oh boy, I mean, the numbers just fall, and it stays. We're kind of in the danger category as we move through the weekend. I mean, 20 to 30 degrees below zero. That's the wind chill.
Yeah, this is a look at the forecasted wind chills for one particular model Friday morning. So 7, 8 o'clock, right around the time that everyone's leaving for their Friday morning commute. Negative 23 degrees for it feels like in Lansing.
And schools, when they get in the danger category, they will cancel for that.
Yeah, because, I mean, you don't want your kids standing out at the bus stop for 5 minutes, just any prolonged period of time, because it's in situations like this where you can get frostbite in, 15, 25 minutes.
Yeah, max. I mean, if we see some of those numbers realized and they end up more like 25 to 30 below, I mean, you could be 15 minutes or less out in that cold. So I don't blame the schools at all for doing that, but it's always kind of a weird thing to me when we get wind chills that cold and everything still shuts down.
Yeah. So no, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and even as we go into Monday, these wind chills are still going to be in that dangerous category. I mean, Saturday, our wind chills are negative 15, negative 32, the forecasted wind chill in Hastings, 7 a.m. on Saturday.
Right.
The quote-unquote improvement Sunday, 5
yeah.
for a wind chill in St. John's, negative 11 in Mason.
I mean, that's short sleeve weather, right?
I mean, after a while, it's going to start to feel like that, right?
That's what we're telling Jorma is he was looking at one high on the 6th day, which was like 20 something.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh man, that's like a heat wave coming. That's just how cold it's been, though.
I mean, it was very wild. I mean, looking at our forecast today, the warmest day that we had in our 6+6 day forecast was 29 degrees.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, we get close to freezing, and the average high for that day was 30. Mm-hmm. So it's very close, but still slightly below average. And then it just bottoms out. Cole was going over numbers earlier this week, and we were looking at the number of days where you had highs in the single digits. Mm-hmm. And you had to go back to February of 1996 to have 3 days in a row with high temperatures in the single digits.
Yeah.
I don't see that going 4 days, but I guess if something changes, we didn't even look up the number of years you'd have to go back to find 4 days in a row with single digit highs.
So I did some digging about overnight lows.
Oh boy.
So the last time that we had overnight lows, 3 consecutive days below zero in Lansing was 2019. The last time that we had 4 consecutive days with overnight lows below zero was 2014.
Well, I mean, I guess at least it's in the 2000s.
No, David. No. It's still like, we haven't been dealing with this for a long time. So it's going to be that adjustment of just like, you walk outside. And I mean, I think it's very hard to conceptualize what negative 20 to negative 35 degrees feels like outside.
Right. But, it is interesting because obviously people live way north of us and in colder weather, how you start to acclimate to, the really cold stuff. If there's not a lot of wind, it doesn't bother me as much. But I mean, if it's 25 and windy, that bothers me.
Well, yeah.
But then with this kind of cold, though, you've got other things that are happening, like pipes freezing. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of the pipes that are outside, below ground, still freeze up. So it creates so many like ancillary problems than just it's cold.
Exactly. My father always told me at a certain point, like when temperatures drop below, I think his rule was like 32 degrees. I always waited until it dropped below 20. But that my gas tank had to be at least a quarter full, if not a half full.
Yes.
Because then, you get into a situation where, because of that pocket of air, essentially, you don't want your gas tank to condense and have moisture and prevent your car from starting.
Right. I mean, anytime it's this cold, like, driving home from work earlier this week, we had some good lake effect going. To think about having a slide off with 1/8 of a tank of gas, because it could be a while before, you get a tow truck out or whatever. So it's just dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, we always say in the winter to have kind of an emergency kit in your car, blanket, extra layers, something to stay warm, gloves, hat, scarf. You're going to need that whole thing even when you step outside, let alone should something happen while you're in your car.
Yeah, I mean, if that 10-minute drive to work turns into a 3-hour waiting for someone to come tow you out, and these kind of temperatures, you could be in real trouble. Then throw in snow, and it complicates it even more. So, in wintertime, but especially when we're having this kind of Arctic air, really important to have your survival kit ready to go.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also some good tips on here too, making sure that your tire pressure, is up to speed essentially with your car.
Yeah.
Because I also did some digging. I didn't know this. So I learned something new every single day, I like to say. Your car tire pressure will drop around 1 psi for every 10-degree decrease that we have in temperature.
I just had to fill all 4 tires.
I have 2 of mine that are running low.
Yeah.
And I just know when I go over to Bell Tire, it's going to be me and everybody else over there.
I've been like, well, they'll warm up when it gets warmer, so should I take care of it now? And then I'm like, what am I talking about? Of course I should. So I got the tires inflated and all good now, but it wasn't a shock as temperatures, started to get this kind of Arctic feel that my tire warning lights came on.
Yeah, and I mean, we said that the warmest high temperature that we have in the forecast, I think, was 29 degrees. And that's on Wednesday. And then Saturday morning, we have a low of negative 11. The air temperature, negative 11.
You know what? I would have to look up the data to see when our last temperature that cold happened. And, it happens. It happens. Every year we get some below zero weather, and some years it gets down to that range or colder. But it feels like it's been a long time. So I'm not planning on being out at any point Saturday morning.
Saturday afternoon and evening, I had already made plans with a couple of our former, a former anchor/reporter. We were going to go to Topgolf over in Metro Detroit. And I texted them and I was like, hey, do you guys still want to go? It's going to be really cold. And they're like, oh, we don't mind. I'm like, I kind of mind. I was just hoping that you all would say no.
Yeah, you should have asked her to rain check it.
I should. That would have been pretty punny if I did.
Well played, huh?
Yeah, that was a pretty good one there that you kind of slid in. But I mean, we kind of have all of these blasts of cold Arctic air that kind of trickle in every so often.
Right. And I mean, like with the winter cold, I'm surprised sometimes how we have to kind of repeat some things because it sort of becomes second nature. But I mean, for every 10 degrees it drops below 20, that's another layer of clothes.
Yeah.
You've got to wear multiple layers in this kind of cold or you really risk some frostbite.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not something that you play about. I mean, make sure that your pets are inside because if it's too cold for you, it's way too cold for them as well.
Absolutely, yeah. See that a lot in the summer, dogs or cats out, and it's really hot outside. I don't see it as much in the winter, so good job. But if it's too cold for you, it's probably going to be too cold for your pet. So bring them in, let them sit by the fire or have a little doggy or cat bed or whatever because the pets feel it just as much as we do.
Yeah, and I think, whenever we're in winter, you see on social media a bunch of things, about snowfall totals from these random people. And so also, when you have these Arctic air masses funneling in, I've seen so many posts of warning, the polar vortex is returning for the first time since, such and such and such. I had to pull that in because I know you.
Oh,
I know you love that
I detest
term.
buzzwords. We're going to do a show on buzzwords one day. Polar vortex has been here for a long time, before humans were here. It's going to be here probably after we're gone. It happens every year. This is one. We're getting an Arctic blast, and there's the polar vortex involved. But it happens every year. Yeah,
it's just a term that I feel like people now just kind of throw around to, scare people.
And try to get shares and likes.
Exactly. So I put that little super up there because I know you'd appreciate it. Well, tune in, of course, to see that buzzword episode later on, too.